You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
Welcome to the Hot Options Report, your premier source for insight into the fast-moving options market. Each day, we'll track down the products that are dominating the options chains and impacting your trading account. From Apple to VIX and everything in between, if it's lighting up the options tape, then you'll find it on the Hot Options Report. And now, get ready to scan the tape for the most explosive options activity on the street. It's time for the Hot Options Report.
All right, everybody, that music means it is time to wrap up your options day the right way. Yes, it is time for your Hot Options Report for Tuesday, August 19th. My name, of course, Mark Longo, coming at you from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you are binging and mainlining these days. Remember, if you're just checking out the Hot Options Report, A, we love you, and B, make sure you're checking out the full network wherever you find your favorite podcast programs. Now, if you're listening to this show, chances are that you're pretty serious about options trading. So let me put something on your radar. Public. It's the most cost-effective way to trade options. That's because Public is the only platform that gives you rebates on your options trades. They also have some of the industry's lowest index options fees, whether you're placing single leg or complex multi-leg trades. Every dollar counts. Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Again, the Hot Options Report brought to you by Public. Full disclosures in the podcast description. All right, let's get down to business, listeners. And was business good today? Was it a hot, a spicy day out there on the options front? You know, we saw a little bit of red sneaking into the major indices towards the latter portion of the session, and that could usually translate into a little bit of volume, particularly a wee bit of red sneaking in over there on the NASDAQ side. So all that translating into a little bit spicier VIX. VIX cash gaining about half a point, closing a little bit north of 15.5 today, 1557. Putting up some numbers, though, today. 1.25 million contracts. That blows away the ADV of just 730,000 contracts. So all it took, a little bit of red in the S&P to drive some flow out in the VIX. Go figure. Go figure how that works. What was the hot option out there in VIX? We're going out to September this time. The September 16 puts. Going up 94,000 times today. That's interesting. Now, some of that paper today obviously also going up because today's the last day before VIX options for August go the way of the dodo. And so a lot of paper goes up on the Tuesday before expiration and settlement. Your hot option for VIX today, 94,000 of the September 16 puts. You want to know what they traded for? Average price right around 50 cents. You like them? Would you buy them or sell them at that price? Hit us up. Let us know. As we keep on rolling out to SPY, was it a similarly active, a similarly dense day? In SPY, the answer was yes, 8.36 million. That's against an ADV of 7.86 million. That's for fully 500,000 contracts more than expected out there today. And SPY, the hot option out there today, nearly 500,000, 488,000 of the 643 calls. You know it expired today. Average price of 45 cents. Not exactly looking like a winner chicken dinner if you bought them, listeners. SPY going out today a little bit shy of 640, 639.81. Out to the S we go. Was it a similarly hot, spicy day in the S? The answer was yeah, it was decent. 4.03 million contracts changing hands in the SPX against an ADV of 3.78, so right around 250,000 more contracts hitting the tape today. The hot option out there in the S today, 194,000, so almost 200,000. Of these 6,400 puts, so they traded for an average price of nearly $2, which is going to sound a little rich. Excuse me. Going to sound a little rich when you hear where I tell you where the S went out. North of 6,400, unfortunately for all those put buyers, 6,411 and about a third. Now, of course, if you sold them, you're laughing all the way to the bank, keeping that $2 out there. But we had some intraday action out there in the SPX. That's going to drive a little bit of downside, and that's what we saw today. But the question a lot of people have right now is what's going on in small caps? In fact, we had an interesting discussion about small caps today on another one of our new programs hitting the network, the European Market Brief. Make sure you check it out. That small cap to large cap delineation, how it breaks down here in the US versus in Europe. Very different story. So, and also some interesting similarities there. So check that out if you are so inclined. All right, to IWM we go, listeners. Was it a hot day in small caps? Again, this product has been putting up just banger after banger lately, and then kind of quieting down to the start of this week. Is it hot today or kind of quiet? 1.18 million, that's your answer. That's against an ADV of about 1.43 million, so a little bit quieter than you might expect, and certainly below the 2.25, nearly 2.5 million contracts we were seeing this time a week ago. The hot option out there in small caps, once again, going out to the downside in September. September 216 puts, 140,000 of those hitting the tape today. Again, all opening paper. If you're wondering, got a ways to go for those to pay off. Small caps going out a little bit north of 226, right around 226.25 today. So over 10 handles out of the money are those puts. As we keep on rolling out to the Qs, Qs kind of wearing it today, selling off about 1.5%. So not a good day for the tech bellwether and indeed the heavy tech index out there. Putting up some numbers though, 5.25 million contract. That's a pretty spicy day in the tech heavy NASDAQ. The ADV about exactly 4 million. So blowing that away by 1.25 million contracts, listeners. The hot option on a very hot and spicy day in the Qs, 206,000 of the 572 calls, all expiring today. Now that is kind of interesting. A lot of times when we see a lot of action, a lot of price movement in an index, we sometimes see people move away from the 0-day contracts, but not today and not in the Qs. 572s, Qs going out a wee bit south of that, right around 569.25 today. Looks like an average price of nearly 60 cents for those 572s. So unfortunately, not looking like a winner chicken dinner on those bad boys. But you know what? It's always a winner when we dive on into the single name equity options. Let's see, how hot, how spicy was it today on your favorite stock options? Did it cost 1 million contracts or close to it to break into the top 10? The answer was no, but that was kind of unsustainable paper last week, listeners. Not bad, though. A little over 500,000 contracts, 511,000. Gets us to our old pals, Robinhood. In fact, I just got off chatting with those folks. Make sure you check out the full network. You can see our conversation about all the interesting new bells and whistles on the options front. We also talk a little bit of education, talk a little bit of crypto, talk a little bit of binaries, all sorts of fun. Sneak it in there on my chat with the Robinhood folks. Yet another reason why you should be subscribed to the full network. But Robinhood closing today, 107.5 out there, giving up 7.5 points, or about 6.5%. So I dragged some secrets out of those Robinhood folks that they weren't supposed to say. The street heard about it, crushed the stock as a result. Either way, taking a bit of a drubbing out there. You know, the big news out there is the NFL and college prediction markets that they're launching on Robinhood today. Apparently, the market not liking that, taking them to the woodshed, but they like the options out there today. Over 500,000 of those going up. What was the hot option out there in Robinhood today? And once again on the show, let's just scan really quickly. I think we are 10 for 10. Yes, that is the case. We are 10 for 10. All weekly options expiring this Friday, listeners. And it's our old pal, the 120s, the August 120s expiring again at the end of this week, listeners, going up 42,000 times. That was your hot option in Robinhood. Average price of 82 cents, and that was all opening paper. So 120. That seems like a bit of a distant memory, especially after today's sell-off. Can we rally back to the 120 plus 82 cent level, listeners, by Friday if you were buying these things? Seems like a bit of a Herculean lift, but you know, these markets are wild. Anything could happen. Number 10, Robinhood. Number 9, out to Rigetti. We go, listeners. You know when Rigetti's making it into the top 10 that things are a little wild. Of course, a quantum name closing today, $15.16. Also giving some back to the market gods today, off about 1.5 points or nearly 9%. Quantum's one of those sectors, listeners. It's hot and then it's really not. So you got to catch it when it's moving the way you want, listeners. Either way, 581,000 contracts on the tape for Rigetti today. And you know, if past is prologue, folks are probably piling into some near-dated upside calls. Let's see if that's the case. What was your hot option in Rigetti today? And look at that. It's like I've done this before or something, listeners. It was the 17 halves going up 175,000 times. That is a lot of paper, all opening. Looks like average price of around 12 to 13 cents. So not a huge outlay out there. That obviously accounts for some of the size, but still. 17 halves. Can we get there by Friday? Would you sell anything in Rigetti for 12 cents? Or is that too much risk for a quantum name? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. Out to the land of the fruit company we go, listeners. It's Apple. Apple closing today right around 230 and a half, 230.56 to be precise. Putting up 701,000 contracts. So we're only at number 8, already at 700,000. That's respectable for a day in the dog days of summer, after all. And the hot option out there in Apple today, almost 51,000 of the 232 half calls, going up for an average price of around $2. So 230 half, obviously you have to get to 234 half to make those bad boys pay off. If you are indeed buying them, that was opening paper. And again, Apple closing right around 230 and a half. So it's got a ways to go to make those 232 halves pay off for around $2, but we've seen Apple do wilder things. Speaking of wild, out to number 7 we go. This name has been all over the place, and certainly all over the place on our top 10 lately. Coming in at number 7 today, what am I talking about, listeners? It is the wild story that is open. Have you been trading this? Have you been buying just the stock and riding it? Have you been buying stock, selling calls against it? Have you been buying puts, buying calls? What have you been doing out here? Certainly a lot of people are trading open because putting up 839,000 contracts today. Open after a wild ride north of $4 today, got up to $4.10 intraday, closing back down at 362. I say back down in air quotes because it was below 2.5, a couple of sessions ago. So been a wild run out there. In fact, we had a fun question of, not even the question of the week, it was a flash poll yesterday. I mentioned it on the Hot Options Report. We said, hey, the stock's in wild rally ho mode. AUG4 calls expiring this week. We're trading for size yesterday for 35 cents, listeners. We said at that price, are you a buyer? Are you a seller? Are you not touching open? And about 46% of you ended up going that route. You're not touching this with a 10-foot pole. About 43% for you want to buy them, and about 10 to 11% said you would sell them. A brave bunch because you were wearing it on those earlier today. So wild stuff. AUG4s out there. Today, the hot option in open yet again. The AUG4s, 109,000 of those going up for 37 cents today. So I traded 35 cents yesterday, 37 cents average price today. That's our old pal open coming in at number 7. Number 6, it's the monster. There has been some price action this week in Bitcoin, most of that to the downside, and that's being reflected out there in the monster, aka MicroStrategy. Looking a little bit less monstrous today, 336 and about a half, off about 27 handles or about 7.5%. So bit of a rough day on the monster front. Nearly a million contracts, though, 903,000 contracts. So a spicy day in MicroStrategy land. The hot option out there, 46,000 of the 385 calls. My goodness, 385s. And that was all opening for an average price of 63 cents. I get it. This name can move all over the place. But 385s, almost 50 handle out of the money calls. By Friday, again, that's opening papers. That is new positioning coming in today. Wild, absolutely wild stuff. Let's hope for their sake that was the other part of a vertical or something else, listeners, because on the surface, that is some absolutely wild paper. But we're not done with the wild paper. We're only halfway through our top 10. Number 5, it's good old AMD, putting up nearly 1 million contracts as well. 993 on the tape for AMD. AMD closing right around 166.5 today. Also giving some back to the market gods, off nearly $10, or about 5.5% today. So AMD, Nvidia, all the chip stocks have been riding high lately, giving some back finally. They're still up size on the last month, up about 6% over the course of the last month. Of course, another day like today, giving up over $9, and you're pretty much going to be back to flat on the month. So interesting stuff out there. What was the hot option out there in AMD? Could it possibly be puts? And the answer is no, listeners. It will not be puts. It's calls and or bust in a lot of these names, and that is the case in AMD. 71,000 of the 175 calls. Again, looking a little bit out of the money here. Closing, like I said, 166 and about a half. These went up for about $1.10 as well, so they really need to run up to 176 by Friday to make these bad boys pay off if they were indeed buying them. And again, as with everything else we're talking about on our hot options report today, this is all opening paper as well. So new positioning on the 175 strike today. So hot stuff out there in AMD. What's beating AMD at the number 4 spot? It's our old pal Intel. Intel going hat in hand to DC, asking the administration to take a stake. The administration's still considering that, but SoftBank in the meantime says, hey, we'll be your Huckleberry. We'll come in and we'll take a piece of the storied tech former bellwether out there. Intel folks liking that news, popping the stock about $1 2/3 or nearly 7%, closing today right around 25 1/3. So a good day for Intel bulls. I mean, it was just $20 exactly a week ago. So good run here for Intel lately. 1.5 million contracts, 1.56 million contracts. So a very spicy day in Intel, and also not the wildest paper. Comparatively reasonable compared to some of this other stuff we're talking about here. And once again, it's pretty much all calls all the time, listeners, except for one. Can you guess which is our Huckleberry? Hint, hint, we haven't talked about it yet. Yes, it was 105,000 of the AUG 26 calls, going up for an average price of around 76 cents. So they need these bad boys to run a little bit, but nowhere near as outlandish as some of these other strikes we were just talking about, including the 385s in the monster. That is just wild. All right, number 3, yet again, that is also wild in and of itself. Tesla continuing to fall down the charts, even though ever so slightly today. The number 2 spot just beat it out by a hair. But number 3, it's Tesla. 1.74 million contracts on the tape for Tesla. Tesla closing a little bit shy of 330, 329.31 to be precise. And the hot option in Tesla, it was about 111,000 of the 340 calls. So stock's got to run a little bit, about 1070 to hit that strike by the end of the week. Average price, though, about 4.25. So needs to run obviously a little bit past that to make that 4.25 pay off if you were indeed buying them. But interesting stuff, interesting strike selection out there for Tesla. And what else is interesting is what could kick Tesla to the number 3 spot today. It's our old pal Palantir. 1.75 million contracts exactly changing hands out there in Palantir. So Palantir feeling the tech wreck out there today as well. Man, the market god's coming for the tech names today. Giving up 16.25 handles, or about 9.33%, closing right around 157.75. So a very active day out there today. And this is your Huckleberry, if you guess which name was lighting up the puts today. It's the 160 puts, now in the money puts. These are actually looking pretty good. They went up for an average price of about $3, $2.94 to be precise. They closed 2.25 in the money, so they're looking pretty good on these. Again, 160 puts in Palantir, changing hands 80,000 times. Wild stuff. That means you know what number 1 is, listeners. It's our old pal Nvidia, getting back to some semblance of its normal form. Right around 2.7 million contracts changing hands out there today. Nvidia closing right around the 175 level, listeners. 175.64 to be precise. It is also not immune to the tech wreck today, off about 6.33 or about 3.5%. So again, the market gods, they demand their pound of flesh sometimes, and they've been given a lot lately. Now they're taking some back. What was the hot option out there in Nvidia today. 219,000 of the 180 calls. Average price of about $1.66. So these seem a fair ways to go. But then again, Nvidia can move $5 and change. No problem out there. Can it do it by Friday is the question. I guess you got to stay tuned to the Hot Options Report to find out. And that's going to do it for your Hot Options Report for Tuesday, August 19th. I hope you're having a good trading week. Remember, stay tuned to the full network for pretty much 3 shows coming at you. Day 4 coming at you tomorrow, getting a double dose of Options Bootcamp, everyone's favorite educational program. And then, of course, the Futures Rundown. And then, of course, back again tomorrow with another episode of the Hot Options Report. Stay safe out there, everybody.
Check out public.com/optionsbrief and discover the most cost-effective way to trade options. Paid for by Public Investing. Full disclosures in podcast description.